So welcome to today's video, and as you can see, I'm doing another update video. As you can see, we still have investing for you, and as I hinted at during my last video last night, I said it's to have a very good chance of being declared a tropical depression at the following advisory pack, and that's what happened. And that's what happened. Is the investing for E was upgraded to tropical depression for E, and then just shortly before recording this video, National Hurricane Center issued their second advisory, since advisories, tropical advisories are issued on 6-hour intervals. So they're issued at 8 o'clock, 8 a.m., issued at 2 Pacific time, 8 Pacific time, 2 p.m., 2 p.m. Pacific time, and 8 p.m. Pacific time, so 4 times a day, and they issued the 8 o'clock one just right now, obviously. They upgraded the depression into tropical storm Dolores. You can sort of see, we'll talk about some of the structures with Dolores. Some of the structures with Dolores in a second. You can see currently the maximum sustained winds is at 40 miles per hour. And the minimum central pressure is 1,004 millibars, and it's moving west-northwest at about 10 miles per hour. And see with the ANG's forecast track here, they bring the system up. They bring the system up into basically a 60 knot, 70 mile per hour tropical storm before landfall in about 36 hours. I'll get into my thoughts on that in a second. And eventually, the ANG also seems to have a landfall near the Colima-Jalisco border, while even if the global models have us a little bit further south, I'll get to that in a second. Then they eventually have some dissipating over the mountainous terrain of Mexico on Sunday. The landfall on Sunday. That's just a bit basic for what the ANG is anticipating. You can sort of see, what you can mostly see is that the system continues to have at least a clear broad turning and circulation. You can sort of see the alpha, as I mentioned, is good as I mentioned yesterday. Even to the north, even though the system's near land, you can sort of see the seasonal months feeding off from the monsoonal convection, both to the north and the south. And you can see some pre-curved bands. However, as you can sort of see on microwave, the system does not really have a defined inner core yet. And you can sort of see right here, you can sort of see mostly just well-defined rain bands, but no real inner core structures yet. And the system wants to intensify, it's going to have to get inner core. It's going to have to get some more defined inner core features. Now let's take a look at the model runs. The 0Z GFS initialization seemed a little bit better. Didn't seem to have us too far south. GFS went back to its previous at 6Z. It went back to its previous 18Z and earlier. Forecast to bring the system near the Colima-Michoacán border. As a somewhat vigorous system. As a somewhat vigorous system with about 995 millibars, I can eventually move this, which of course is this is also to the east of what the NHC track has been showing. I'll get to that in a second. I mean, the primary, regardless, as I mentioned in my previous video, the primary threat The primary threat is mostly the heavy rains, which are likely to linger across anywhere from anywhere as far east as Oaxaca. The GFS continues to insist on up to 10 inches of rain, and the Canadian has the rain percentage a little bit further to the coast. I don't think, but even that's still forecasting up to 10 inches of rain along coastal areas as far to the west as Jalisco. The Canadian also brings this system The Canadian model also brings the system onshore a little bit later on around Sunday, and also has a landfall a little bit further north near the close to the ANC track near the Michoacan-Jalisco border. They can look at the 0Z run. The GFS also, I'm not gonna mention a separate segment to this just because we're focused on Dolores, but both the GFS and Canadian models also do show continue to show the additional tropical system that I was mentioning yesterday. Near the there could potentially be another place to the Mexican coast, but I'm not gonna really devote time to this in this video just because it focuses on Dolores. But anyway, back to Dolores. When we into European, is showing a relatively similar phenomenon. But actually brings the system onshore, or should keep the system offshore to about 0Z on Sunday, which is a little bit longer than what the previous, which is a little bit longer than I previously anticipated the European would show on this particular run. So, and this is also more in agreement with the NHC track, and the current landfall location used in central Jalisco. This is currently in central Jalisco. So anywhere from Colima and Jalisco, I guess the sort of consensus threat. I'm gonna get to the H-Worth and HMI, and the European also brings us into about 984 millibars, which on this resolution was probably indicative of a strong tropical storm, a weak hurricane. I think if this thing I'm gonna touch on, if this thing can get a really intercore established, the waters are warm and waters displaced upper level anticyclone. I'll show it on the GFS. Hold on. Let me show the overall setup on the GFS. You can sort of see there's a little bit displaced upper anticyclones inducing only moderate wind shear. This is offset by the very warm sea surface temperatures and very high moisture content that you typically see. It's a little bit unusual that you don't really see this sort of favorable thermodynamic environment. Favorable moisture and thermodynamic setup in the Eastern Pacific. Normally with these, you have these systems that are farther out here that stay offshore and generally have to, especially in the beginning of the year, have to encounter drier air. This is a little bit of an anomaly in that regard. Now let's take a look at the H-Worth. H-Worth is showing the same thing, but I want to actually show the intensity here. Oh, it's not good. It's the parent domain. Yeah, the H-Worth is trending toward, is showing a landfall into Colima. So it's pretty similar to the also appears to be Colima, so it's pretty similar to the GFS, and much further to the further east in the European, which tends to show a little bit of a later landfall. But given that, honestly, European as well as UK Met, while I generally stand those models, I do actually tend to favor the GFS and H-Worth here, so they actually do a little bit better than I think people give them credit for in this area of the world. Like in this specific area of the world, at least. And it's also worth noting that intensity-wise, there's also some disagreement here with the H-Worth bringing the system to about to an E0 hurricane, and I believe the HMIN is a little bit further north and brings us near the Colima-Jalisco border, with winds of about 83 knots, and it keeps the system offshore to about 18Z. So the consensus generally is, just to recap, I want to see what they show rainfall-wise. They generally show significant, much like the GFS, they generally show some significant rainfall. Significant radar signature on the east side of the system and through some of the outer bands, and they generally show a relatively consolidated structure. So the area, a relatively consolidated structure of hurricane landfall. Do they have total Alright, they don't. Alright, they generally show a relatively consolidated structure at landfall. And I think, and how strong this get, I think, kind of depends on how much the moderate wind shear bottom the system and how long the system stays over water. Because if the system is onshore within about 24 hours or less, I mean, if you assume a climatological intensification rate, the latest Dvorak number, which is about 1 Dvorak number a day, the latest T number from SAB is T2.5. 30, which is equivalent to 35 knots. So if you add 1 Dvorak number in a little bit under 24 hours, the system could have left. That would bring the system to about a T3.5 or 55 knots. But I'm assuming, to be fair, given the favorable setup, the system could intensify a bit faster. The NHC has now issued a hurricane watch as a result of this uncertainty. And I believe from Cabo Cortez to, I believe, to Manzanillo to near the border with Lizardo Cardens, I believe, near the border between Colima and Michoacán, I believe. But no, I think it's it's into Michoacán to parts of Jalisco where the hurricane watch and tropical storm warning area is. But yeah, however, the system has more time over water, I think the chances of becoming a hurricane and something it takes a little bit more of a westerly track. While the shear will be slightly higher, that'll be offset by the more time over water that the system has. And as a result, the system has probably a much higher chance of becoming a hurricane, possibly even as high as about 80 knots. So if you do a one T number, if you give this a 36-hour intensification window and assume 1 T number per day, that would suggest about a 65-knot landfall. If you do a more of a brisk rate of intensification, assume 1.5 knot T number per day, that would give the system up to about T45, between T45 and T50 at landfall, which would suggest an intensity about as high as 80 or 85 knots. Though I will say, given the fact system doesn't have an core established, I'd be a little bit hesitant thinking the system could get stronger than that. Anyhow, that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoy this. My next video is that. Hope you guys learned something from this. My next video will be either later today if it's warned, but if not, tomorrow when Tropical Storm Dolores makes landfall. Bye.